Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
After the thrills and spills of Portimao, it's now time to head to week 2 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series here with myself, Paul Smith, and Arjuna Kankipati here behind the voices behind the microphones here. And Arjuna, completely the opposite conditions to what we had last week.
It's going to be really interesting because the rain, it's the great equalizer, right? When conditions are changing, it requires the drivers to adapt. Out goes the practice, that muscle memory that you develop in the world of sim racing. And so I'm really looking forward to this, Paul, with the chaos of week 1. Now what are we going to see with week 2 and drivers settling into the rhythm?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see drivers with the greatest adaptability, I think is going to be the word that we say the most here. Let's just have a look at the format for those of you who are just joining us here on the Contender Series. So we take the top 15 from the qualifying series and the bottom 15 from the Super Cup this year, and they all come into this mixing bowl that is Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. The top 15 from this series have the opportunity to race in next year's Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup in 2025. We do have a few entries as well through one of the Porsche market as well for their various Carrera Cup esports programs throughout the world. And well, Arjuna, we've seen plenty of action in that opening week of racing, and it does mean that we get to see some a real sort of an idea as to who's going to be looking to do well this season in the point standings.
And so the thing to also remember as we, maybe think about the point system as well. So we've got 15 drivers who are maybe new to the Contender Series, 15 drivers that are familiar with the Super Cup. And so we introduced this format, right? The qualifying, sprint race, and feature race that we will see in the 2025 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. But the qualifying series was just one qualifying session and one race. So the idea being that the drivers from the qualifying series have got to get accustomed to this format. The drivers who are coming down from the Super Cup, Paul, they're getting to grips with, in some cases, the conditions and the rain that we've got here today, but also the tracks and some of the layouts of the tracks that we go to as well, some of the less used variants of some very popular racing venues.
Absolutely. Speaking of those racing venues, for the calendar, last time we were at the Algarve for week 1 of the championship. Now we're at Okayama in Japan, and well, normally we'd talk about the low grip asphalt, but I think it's the low grip wetness that's on the wet stuff that's on the ground that we're going to be talking about today. Next week we head to Laguna Seca for WeatherTech Raceway, and then it's Circuit Zolder on the Grand Prix layout, Saxon Ring, and then Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps rounds out this 6-week championship. And the crucial thing to remember here as well in this championship, there are no drop scores for the drivers. So anyone who missed out last week, and I'm going to point out one driver in particular, Beckham Josiah, is now going to be on the back foot for the rest of the season.
And it's a short season as well, right? Just these 6 rounds, no time to take a break. So Yeah, something very much to keep in mind. And, you know, Beckham Jasir, someone that I think we're going to be watching out for today, right? How is he going to propel himself into the mix, knowing that the likes of Josh Rogers, Elvis Rankin, you know, the pair of winners from Algarve have solidly settled themselves in. They've got teammates to support them as well. What can Beckham Jasir do in his Williams Esports entry?
Absolutely. Speaking of those two race winners, they lead the championship, then first and second place. 3 points separate those two. Tristan Iglesias then joint in second place with Florian Labigre in fourth. Then it's Michael Jani and Mitchell de Jong separated by a single point. Carlos Fenalosa just 2 points back from them two. And then there's a bit of a gap between them and then Marina Sarica, Xander Reed and Dane Warren. This season, though, it's not about winning the championship, although ask any race driver, they want to win the championship that they're in. But this season is purely about making sure that you get yourself into that top 15 to qualify for the Porsche Tagore Esports Super Cup next year.
And maybe more pertinently, right, just think about staying top 5. Because if you're top 5, Paul, into those final 2 rounds of the season, don't really have to worry too much, right? As long as you don't get tangled up in chaos in every single race, you'll feel somewhat confident. It's the drivers 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and especially 14th, 15th who will be concerned going to that final race of the season. It's something that we often talk about in the Super Cup itself, right? Yep. Look at Gustavo Ariel, final race of, what was it, 2023 Super Cup. He wins at Monza, locks himself into the top 15. So as we see drivers struggling and qualifying, oh, this is, I think Beckham Jasir, oh, he's going to be starting down the back.
Well, this is just the practice session. This is the warm-up before qualifying. So this isn't even qualifying. But you can see low visibility. That's going to be a talking point for those starting mid-pack towards the rear of the field. But it's also, if you're that leading car, you're the one being able to sort of pick out your braking spots and your lines going into corners, and others can follow you and maybe brake that 5-6 meters later to go into that corner and try and make a move.
You mentioned the surface at this track, right, and the low grip nature of it. Now, what's that going to mean when you throw the rain onto it? Because oftentimes we talk about you know, the regular racing line being the worst place to be in the rain, because it's where, for the most part, the track's smooth. There's so many cars running over it, there's nowhere for the track to run. And so often, offline is where you want to be in the wet. You think about this sort of a track surface though, Paul, it's already low grip. I wonder what some of these drivers are going to be thinking about, because they would have known this is going to be a rain potentially affected race. They'll have done their practice, done their homework. Who's dialed in something? We know Coanda always come in with a trick up their sleeve.
Putting on my meteorological hat to give you the official conditions out there. 19 degrees air temperature, 19 degrees track temperature. There's a light fog, and the track is officially extremely wet. That means that basically it's as wet as it can get, and we have got on the radar that we can see in the simulator yellow and red patches of rain. So the rain could get even harder out there for these drivers potentially.
And, you know, it's so great to see Josh Rogers back amongst, you know, the 12 other Coanda teammates that we've got in this series. But I think this is where, as well, for him, with he's fast in practice. What's he going to do in qualifying now? Because that format's so interesting, right, Paul? It puts you at the front of the sprint race if you qualify well, but puts you back in 8th position for the start of the feature race. That's where most of the points are paid out. Rogers is still sitting pretty, let's be honest, with the pole and the sprint race win that he had a week ago. But a bit more chaos, I think, off the line here into turn number 1. Maybe something to be a bit more concerned about, starting from 8th in the feature race.
Now, normally what you would say, as we take a look at Beckham Jasir in that Williams Esports Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car, normally what we'd say in a qualifying session in the rain is, well, get out there early, get a banker lap in, and then just keep on putting the laps in and see what you can get in case it dries up a little bit. But not here. The drivers haven't got that opportunity. It's one lap, and that's it for these drivers.
And that's why the practice session, I guess, is so important. Now, there is a bit of a jump in the session in terms of time. Don't know what that's really going to mean, though, in terms of if the rain's going to move around, what's it going to really do. I think the one thing that we know for sure, Paul, is that this outlap is basically all you've got to figure things out. We also know it's the only time you've really got to get the tires warmed up and dialed in for the one lap that you've got. So there's so much running through these drivers' minds. At least they're staying on the surface this time, and not so much on the brake pedal as well. I think there's less gains in qualifying than we've seen in years past.
Yeah, this is going to be intriguing, that is for sure, and I cannot wait to see how qualifying goes for these drivers. So, as we go through, here is Beckham Josiah on board. And the key thing with wet weather driving is to be really soft out there with your inputs, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Sorry, Paul, I've just had a shocking revelation looking down through the entry list right now. You were talking about drivers who are missing rounds of the championship and calling out Beckham Josiah. We'll see him cross the line. Aaron Vasquez, I called him out last week as pulling double duty, FAA F4 Esports Global Championship. He's not here today. Wow, already we've got one driver that's going to be missing out on this rain. Don't know if he's going to be so disappointed. Let's look at the onboard steering with Josiah, though.
Yeah, you can see a lot of lock having to go in there through Williams and then into the Moss S. Now, normally this is absolutely flat out. He's having to lift through there to be able to get it, and at really early braking points, you're braking off the racing line, cutting across the racing line, opening up the wheel to just try and be able to get the throttle applied down there, and then into the braking zone, into hairpin corner. You're going to see them just come to the inside a little bit, perhaps, get off lines, get off that shiny stuff. But, oh, the pressure is so high for these drivers out there.
And if you're wondering, by the way, Paul calls it hairpin corner. Was he struggling to figure out what it's actually called? No, that's the literal name of the corner. Most descriptive corner name in all of history. This is a section where in dry conditions as well, we sometimes see drivers swing out wide and push out onto the grass. Something you definitely don't want to do in these wet conditions. Will bog you down instantly. Got to be so patient as well here. Down to first gear, double hairpin switchback in through this final sector, and you're seeing aquaplaning on the inside toward the curb, and so Josiah trying to stay away from it, but squares the car up as he tries to then put the power down, foot to the floor, penultimate corner, no worries about pit entry on the right hand side. Instead, it's focus on the final corner, open it up, swing the speed, and to the line with a handful of drivers also getting ready to set their one and only lap time in the qualifying session.
I think we're going to have a few drivers who have not set a lap time either in all of this. So as we cross the line, Marcheno, now it's Josiah, Beckham Josiah, who is the fastest. Simone Mania Marcheno, second place so far. Rafael Silva, third, ahead of Andrew Caron. And well, 1:44.5. Compare that to the practice session that they had just a few moments ago. They were doing 42s. I think the track is a lot wetter than they had in the practice session. As still we carry on, drivers coming across the line to a lot of drivers actually starting laps as Nicolas Matteo. Now it's Carlos Fenolosa who gets to the top of the standings. Marcheno's done his flying lap, but it's interesting here. He's carrying on. He's getting extra practice in here.
You have to as well. 32 thousandths between Fenolosa and Matteo, though. That, I think that shows you what we were kind of expecting, right? Who can adapt the best? And right now, those two very close, a margin to the rest of the field. So we still got some big hitters, I'd say, to come. Florian the Beagle, the only one of the Team Redline drivers, switches his way out of the final sector. Still waiting for Rogers, king of qualifying. Can he stop anyone from grabbing a pole position this season? I mean, that's a very realistic possibility, Paul. 6 races, 6 Rogers poles. Who knows?
You never say never. As Lebigra through final corner, last corner, sorry. And that is literally the... You said that hairpin corner was the most descriptive. Well, last corner and first corner as well. There goes Lebigra across the line, and look at that lap time of 43.892. Times are coming down. Here comes Josh Rogers now. He was the driver on pole position last time. Through last corner he goes. What can he do here, Arjuna?
Oh, I think this is good. I've been watching him. It's been looking tidy, looking clean, which is what you need in these wet conditions. Although as he comes to the line, that seems to have had an issue in the final sector. Never mind. Here we go.
I tell you what, he's pushing it for time if that was his outlap.
So what's weird on my screen, Paul, is it was showing as it was his flying lap in the final sector, but now it's showing as still being his flying lap. So I'm a bit confused. Maybe it's just where he was in pit lane as he started. Who knows? Will Chadwick, though, he'll have time to get to the check-in for sure. Think you're right on Rogers. He's going to be cutting it very close.
He certainly is. As well, you look at, we've only got 11 drivers who have actually set a lap time. There's a second and a half covering those lap times, but you look at it, you're Rogers, De Jong, Rankin, Iglesias, Sarika, Machevsky, Bach, Sipola, Gianni, Veyron, Beliki, Reed, Pai, Chadwick, all of these drivers, the list goes on. They're all out there to the very last minute to set their lap times here. It's cutting it close, but I think they should be able to complete their lap times. Will Chadwick then, the young man from Wigan, he'll be hoping to do well. If he gets a good result here, he could have a Wigan kebab to celebrate afterwards. If you don't know what that is, that's a bread roll with a pie in the middle of it. Dane Warren to the head of the standings right now by 1.1 seconds. Dane Warren has got that hooked up, that Porsche for Contender. Here comes Will Chadwick. Has it got a little bit drier out there, perhaps? Chadwick now, second place ahead of Iglesias. Elliot Veyron to the top now. Mitchell de Jong to the top. Julian Cernan, second place on the standings. Last couple of cars across the line. And what's that going to be? Elvis Rankin then is going to be on pole position at the end. My goodness, Arjuna, that was incredibly close.
I was taking a look at the radar as we were watching those laps come to the line and was seeing that it was looking a bit more green than maybe it had been earlier in the session. Now, did Contender see that? Because remember, they had all their cars stacked up at the end waiting to set the time. They've locked out the front 5 in qualifying.
Well, drivers just have a minute or so to sort themselves out and get themselves prepared for the race. But Elvis Rankin, what a time it's been for him. Winner in the main race last week. Now pole position here, just 0.019 ahead of Mitchell de Jong, with Julian Cernan and Elliot Veyron then on the second row. Dane Warren and Jakub Maciejewski on row number 3. Row 4 for Josh Rogers with Will Chadwick alongside him. Then Tristan Iglesias and Xander Reed on the 5th row of the grid. Bryn Collins and Oscar Pai, 6th row of the grid. Row 7 then for Michael Gianni and Roger Christensen. Florian Labigre, we thought he had a quick time. It's way down the order then. Alongside him is Carlos Fenalosa on row 8. Row 9 for Daniel Savani and Nicholas Matteo. 10th row of the grid for Beckham Josiah and Simone Mania Marchena. Then Rafael Silva and Daniel Pastor then on row number 11. Row 12, it's Andrew Caron and Quentin Violate. Row number 13 for Chunya Zhang and Leo Gariboli, with then drivers who did not set a lap time. Moreno Sarika, Lasse Bach, Matti Sipola, Luis Belike, and then Pascal Costa. Round out your 31 cars on the grid. We've got 30 seconds, Arjuna. It's going to be pretty much impossible to predict a race winner here, just purely by how wet it is out there. Anything could happen here today.
I think what we do expect, right, is Contender teammates not to fight too much at the start. So if you are Elvis Rankin, you can control the run in the opening couple of laps, not making any mistakes. You might be looking at back-to-back victories. For those behind, they've got to try and, again, get to 8th position, reverse pole position for the feature race. 50 points on the board. That's what they're really thinking about.
Here we go then. Drivers preparing. The engine revs are rising. And it's time for the sprint race here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. Good launch from second place for Mitchell de Jong is to the inside of Elvis Rankin, but Rankin stays ahead as they plunge into first corner, 2x2 further down your field, almost going 3 wide on corner exit further back. All about keeping out the spray. There's a little bit of door banging further down your field. On contact, big contact further back, and I believe Beckham Josiah was involved in that as they're coming through. Major problems further down your order there Well, we'll carry on going, but at the front then, it's ranking De Jong, Sonnen, Veyron and Warren as your top 5. It's very difficult to actually make out which cars are where.
And so, who's going to be brave, pop themselves out of that spray and try and make a move to the hairpin? Seems as though up towards the front, they're all going to stay as they are. Will Chadwick fights with Xander Reed just on the outskirts of the top 10. You are right that Beckham Jasir got involved. Painful. Williams Esports, Daniel Pastor mixed up as well. And now trouble in the middle of the pack. It's Josh Rogers in the 92, winner of the sprint race to open up the season. He'll get out of the grass, but drop outside of the top 20.
Oh, that is big for Josh Rogers. He's just 19th right now out there on track, but that's big, and it's these conditions, it only takes the tiniest, a little bit of contact, and the car breaks away and goes around. So big drama for a number of drivers out there. Lassie Back, as you mentioned, is out the race. Beckham Jasir, Leo Gariboli, Simone Maria Marcheno all have mechanical meatball warning flags, the black and orange warning flag. They're going to have to head onto pit road, and their race is pretty much done in the sprint race. Wow, the drama on the opening lap here, but it is still Elvis Rankin, who's almost got a second over his teammate Mitchell de Jong, Julian Sonnen, Veyron and Maciejewski then. Great drive from him. Up now into 5th place for Maciejewski. Warren down to 6th with Iglesias and Will Chadwick in 8th, but the ever-excitable Bryn Collins trying to get into that top 8 right now.
We knew the rain was going to bring something to the mix. I don't think we necessarily could have expected Josh Rogers to have been tangled up in an incident like that, but Paul, it goes to show that unpredictability of the series, but the extra level that now the rain's going to bring. Think about 2025 if we have this in the Super Cup as well, what we could be in for. I'm just saying, Nordschleife plus rain, please, sign me up. That's what I really want. If you're Chadwick, though, defend like a lion. Don't think he's going to be too interested in making the move on anyone in front, knowing those 3 Coanda cars stacked up behind him will be very happy to pounce if they're given an opportunity.
Sonnen's just lost a place to Veyron, up into 3rd place for Elliott. As we go through, here's a look back at lap 1 then, so it's all kicking off to in front. There's bits of contact in front, contact, bang, bang, bang. It all comes to a head, and where on earth do you go through all of that? That was just a real mess in the schmozzle.
The way you go is around, apparently, if you're Daniel Pastor, I think that was. Andrew Carone, a Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada champion, will give us a look. You can just see, I mean, he thinks he's going the right way. One car squeezes through just inside of that tire bundle. He's not so lucky. That's the margins you play with in a series as competitive as this, Paul, is that they bumper cars down at turn number 2. Oh, on board with Marcheno. Not the prettiest sight, I think. Oh, never mind, just here. Yellow wing mirrors, confused me.
No, I think that was Marcheno. I think you were right the first. I think it's the graphic that's wrong, but yeah, that was a big drama through there, and that's affected a lot of people, 4 drivers on pit road after that one. So lap 3 of 10 here in this one, and as they go through into the hairpin once again, all trying to sort themselves out, and Chadwick, he's holding on to 8th place, but it's a roll of the dice as to keeping the car on the track there, really. It is just a case of just hanging on for dear life and keeping it on the grey stuff.
I wonder as well, you know, given that we only have 10 laps in this race compared to the 20 laps in the feature. You know, we talked a bit about tire wear maybe being a factor at Portimao. Definitely not going to be a factor here, Paul. Let's be honest. Wet weather tires usually relatively durable, rather hard in their nature as well. Here's what happened to Rogers though, and he's in the middle, so Chadwick's on the outside. Not quite sure if there was contact with the 77 of Xander Reed, but I mean, from up above, we'll get a much clearer perspective. The run out of the hairpin to the tight left-hander. The, you know, loose Coanda car has an impact, yes, but really it's the shove from behind. Rule number 1 of racing, guys, don't hit your teammate Xander Reed. Report to the principal's office.
That'll be tea and biscuits, I think, afterwards in the team boss's debrief room as we go through. And so as we carry on, and incredible the speed that these drivers are putting in and out there. And running wide there for Maciejewski would normally say, oh, that's a bad thing. That's the wet line through the Atwood curve. It is a wide line for you through there to carry this, one, to carry the speed, but two, you're off the racing line. As you mentioned, Arjuna, it's not got that polished surface where drivers have been going over it time and time again. Daniel Savani is battling with Josh Rogers, and Rogers around the outside into hairpin corner. Oh, almost contact between those two then.
Yeah, but you know, I think for these drivers, they're now just trying to chip away at some of the gaps that they've got in front of them to try and now close. So Rogers 1.5 off of Reed. There is still a chance, you know, that you can close in on maybe a top 10 and try and take advantage of potential chaos to erupt. Now, this is what I was kind of saying at the start. If you're ranking, right, Paul, if you have your teammates behind, you don't fumble the start and you can, you know, control the opening couple of laps. Now you've got a margin behind you and no one really pressuring you. So you're feeling pretty comfortable. Everyone else is probably feeling a little bit more of the pressure. So really hoping to see if it bubbles forward, because this is the first time we've seen rain, right, Paul, in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Didn't have it at all in 2024, so first time you and I get to see it on Porsche's Twitch channel. Yeah,
well, it's not the first time I've seen rain on Porsche's Twitch channel. We saw that earlier this week with the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge GB. Not this week, it was a week before, actually, we had rain in that particular series, but that's two classes of cars. This is Super Cup, or the Contender series to get into Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. And Bryn Collins then looking on board. He's trying to take that different line to Will Chadwick. The problem is, if you do end up on that apex through Atwood curve, you're on the slippy stuff. You're trying to get the power down, whereas if you take that wider line coming into the corner, you can get the power down on the outside and carry that speed then all the way down the straight, like Will Chadwick did then.
Ooh, you can see Bryn Collins' tongue come out, the hand slide to the left as well as he catches the tail end sliding around on him. I tell you what, the one thing that I do love about these webcams in sim racing, had it on Thursday as well in the IndyCar Pro Series, get a great look at what drivers' mouths do. Don't get that in the real world, Paul, when they've got helmets on, because drivers have protection from commentators trying to spy on them. Sherlock Kankipati and Detective Smith. Sorry, I got that all sorts of confused, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, we've got the, I mean, from the webcams, we've got the sim racer's lean, we've got the sim racer's tongue as, oh, look at this around the outside. Bryn can't do it, but he's getting the cut back here. He's on the power a bit better. Oh, that's a very, very aggressive defensive move. There's contact between the two of them. Down the straight. Come on. You're going down a straight, guys. There's about 16, 17 meters of width of asphalt there to go at, and you both want to go on the same piece of asphalt. Well, Bryn Collins makes it through, but that was sketchy at best from both drivers as Collins goes wide now.
Oh, it's the second time this week on the iRacing Esports Network. I'm going to say play silly games, win silly prizes. We're very close to seeing the result of all of this. Bryn was brave to go around the outside after all of that. And after Dane Warren makes a mistake and slips off in the 57, now suddenly Will Chadwick is back into 8th position. Paul, we've still got 4 laps to go when we get back to the line. And look at all of that spray. To the hairpin one more time. Where do you go? Where do you pick out your braking spot? This is fun.
I tell you what, this is fantastic stuff to watch as a neutral from looking from the outside in. I don't think if you're a team boss or if you're one of the drivers, say like for Contender, for example, will have big slide from Chadwick there on the power. But if you've got one of the other drivers sitting in being a race engineer for some of these competitors here, they'll be covering their eyes, they'll be looking through their fingers at all of this as Warren gets right onto the tail of Will Chadwick there, but no move there through Hobbs Corner.
Tell you what, he does not look very happy right now. Probably with himself, to be fair. I'm not assuming there was anyone else involved in that little bit of an issue. Saw Dane Warren lose out, unless we've seen bits of contact already between Coanda teammates. Did Tristan Iglesias have his part to play? I'm going to assume probably not. Notice, though, how Dane Warren does pull out of the spray just to reference his braking point a little bit more. Still manages to go deep, avoids tagging the back of Will Chadwick, though, and so status quo remains. But Paul, uncharacteristic mistakes from Warren, and look at the pressure build up behind.
You know what? I mean, I've done a little bit of rain racing here on iRacing, and you sometimes when it's that bad is the rain and the spray, you have to pull out just to know exactly where exactly you are on the track to be able to know your braking point. And it's so easy to just get your braking wrong. And these cars, unlike GT3 and GT4 machinery, they do not have ABS or traction control in these cars on iRacing. Do elsewhere throughout the world, but in this series here, it's Super Cup rules. No ABS, no traction control, and here we go. Michael Janney trying to make the move on Oscar Pye now.
Yeah, and this is, again, teammates who are trying to hold back maybe some of those behind because they know they've got more teammates in front that they can help by just frustrating and slowing down the drivers behind. And Labigra is going to try around the outside. It will give him the inside to the second hairpin, so watch for him now to try and really push out and box out Michael Janney as they squeeze their way around the right-hander. Nicholas Mateo's Drago Racing, number 71, watches through the spray as well and tries to pick out which direction does he want to go. Does he follow Redline? Does he follow Coanda? Answer was Labigra gets the move done, but as you come out of that final corner, back towards the stripe, battles resume, get the horsepower revved up, and back off to turn one you go.
That was a good move, taking advantage from Florian Labigra there to be able to move up. That's 11th place now. Oh, Michael Janney's under pressure. That's Nicholas Mateo, and almost contact between the two of them as they go into first corner through Williams, this long sweeping left-hander. And if you notice that pretty much every car is just trying their best to avoid curbs because puddles do accumulate, standing water does accumulate. Look at Carlos Fenalosa right now, super focused, getting the hands moving about there. He's pushing on. I mean, he had a good round, good first week, did Fenalosa. He'll be looking to get some good solid points here this week.
But I think the one thing that you're seeing is a bit of restraint, which is not the worst thing in the world when you know that you've got all of that battling up in front of you and you're really not fighting for too much right now, because while there are some points at play, they're not as large as the points in the feature race, which are scaled up a little bit more. So realistically, again, top 8, finishing inside of the inverse grid that we'll have for that second race is so important. That's why Will Chadwick's going to defend so fiercely. Nicholas Mateo, out of nowhere, slows that car down in time, makes the move on Michael Janney. Not quite finished just yet, though, but these drivers know that they've got 2 laps left to go. Time's winding down to make their way forward.
Was that a car going onto pit road? It was. It's Labigra. Labigra's onto pit road. Oh my goodness, what on earth? He's got a black flag. It's a black flag for Labigra. Unbelievable scenes here. You just, when you think things can't go bad enough, well, Florian is having to take a drive-through penalty.
And if you don't know what that means, it means he's gone off the track and made so much contact that basically he's had so many incident points accumulate, the system that iRacing has, that he's automatically been told, head down to pit lane, serve the drive-through. Now, this is only a 10-lap race. We've got a 20-lap race coming up after this. Will we have more drivers in trouble as behind Fenalosa and Rogers come together? Rogers into the wall and maybe out of the race.
His engine went. His engine's gone. That's the end of Rogers' race then. Well, if you wanted excitement, drama, chaos, well, you've come to the right place here, that is for sure. There's Rogers, and yeah, takes the tour back to the pit lane. He knows that his life has got a whole lot worse for race number 2 here as well. Into the hairpin again, and Xander Reed, Michael Janney still continuing that fight between the two of them. Up at the front, Elvis Rankin still has a 1-second lead over Mitchell de Jong, with Elliot Veyron in 3rd place, Julian Sohn in 4th ahead of Jakub Maciejewski. This is a good week so far for Jakub there. Tristan Iglesias and Bryn Collins 6th and 7th, and in that important 8th place, the grid inversion place, is Will Chadwick, but is under some incredible pressure from Dane Warren. Here's what happened to Rogers then.
So you can see he's behind his teammate. So Xander Reed's kind of driving in the middle of the road, and so Rogers not left with much of a choice. And so Reed makes contact with another one of his teammates, so that would have been Michael Jarni. Rogers with nowhere to go. And I've got to say, Paul, if you're Rogers, you're sitting there going, A, my engine, oh, poor engine. B, my teammates, what are they doing? Dane Warren deep at turn 1 into the wall. What is going on at Contender today?
It's like they don't want to finish. Don't forget, Josh Rogers came into this week 2nd place in the championship. Dane Warren was 10th. Dane Warren, it's more important for him to get points here today. And right now, he's down to 16th place then. We're on the final lap of the race. We only get 5 minutes to unpack all of this, Arjuna. I think we need another 10 laps worth of time to be able to go through this race.
I think you and I need to head down to the local pub before we get to the next race, just so we can clear our minds, because my goodness, I mean, you and I, Paul, we've commentated on our fair share of craziness in the 2 years that we've been in the booth for the Super Cup. This has surpassed, and maybe surpassed, the cumulative total of what we've seen in just 10 laps. I can't wait for this in 2025. Bring on the rain, please, a little bit more.
In six years of commentating on the Porsche Tagore Esports Super Cup, I've not seen this level of chaos, and if we've got this to look forward to in 2025, I say bring it on. But one driver who is saying bring it on after a main race win last week, he's got a sprint race win. He's happy about that, gives the one, and Elvis Rankin takes the sprint race win here in the Porsche Tagore Esports Super Cup Contender Series, week number 2 at Okayama. Dane Warren's got a black flag now, so he's going to have a time penalty applied after everyone finishes this race. The top 8, though, crucially, Will Chadwick gets at 8th place and holds on to that place as Matti Sippola. Gotta say, Matti Sippola, one of those drivers who started right at the back, who didn't get a lap time in, 19th.
Yeah, but you know, I maybe would have expected him to move forward even more. I guess it goes to show that as much as we had chaos, Paul, we didn't have too many big losers. There was 3 drivers that lost double-digit positions, only 1 driver that gained double-digit positions. So, going to be very interesting in that next race we've got coming up. How aggressive can drivers be, knowing that, again, double the length, double the time to make the tyres last.
Lasse Back, who was caught up in that lap 1 incident, did get back out there then, and is going round to get himself the best possible starting position, because of course outside of that top 8 in grid inversion, your finishing position is where you start in this race. He's 28th overall. He's not going to overtake Josh Rogers in all of this, so that means that Lasse Back will come across the line. The timing line comes right at the end there, and that will be him across the line. We'll see what the time penalty does to Dane Warren. I think that drops him outside of the top 20, which will be crucial for him not scoring any points there. Elvis Rankin up, he's happy with that. He takes a win here by just under a second over his Contender Esports teammate Mitchell de Jong. The all Contender 1, 2, 3 with Elliot Veyron, and then Julian Soden in the Contender car in 4th place. Jakub Maciejewski in 5th place then breaks up the Contender train with Tristan Iglesias and Bryn Collins in 6th and 7th. Will Chadwick for Heuer setups, he gets himself onto pole position with an 8th place finish ahead of Oscar Pai and Nicholas Matteo. Then it's Michael Jarni, Xander Reed, Carlos Fenolosa ahead of Daniel Savani, Roger Christensen and Andrew Caron, and then Dane Warren, then it drops him down to 17th then on the results ahead of Rafael Silva, Matti Sippola and Florian Lebigre. Jonier Zan, great result for him, moved up through the field then up into 21st ahead of Daniel Pastor and Marina Sarica. Pascal Costa, Quentin Violate and Luis Belique is the last on the lead lap. Josh Rogers with a blown engine. Lasse Bakwis all come across the line. Drivers who did not finish: Simone Emilia Marcheno, Beckham Jasia, and then finally Leo Gariboli not finishing the race. Well, where do we unpack all of that? Big drama for some of you drivers who we expected to be up there. I think the driver who's been affected the most, though, is Dane Warren, though. He was only 10th coming into this week of the championship. Dropping down the points like that with one big mistake like that, that's huge.
Yeah, it would be easy to say Rogers is the big loser, but like you say, right, with him coming in at the very top of the championship, him dropping down, less of an impact than with Warren being where he is on that bubble, right? We've talked about top 15. 10 through 15 is really where you start to get worried. And so now that pressure's on, and well, we got, what, 4 more races after this. We've got a couple of tracks where, you know, historically in the real world, rain could be in the offing. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll get it in the sim. And so something else to keep in mind, if this is the level of unpredictability and craziness that the rain is going to bring, there are certain drivers to keep an eye on, the ones that can keep the calmest heads, right, and keep themselves out of the trouble, that will do very, very well if we get some more of these rain races when it really counts.
Elvis Rankin, though, it must be said, we barely looked at him all race there. Just controlled, nice and mature drive from him, controlled things at the front from pole position. He didn't get the fastest lap, that was Josh Rogers, but still, a really calm and mature race from Elvis there.
Yeah, he's getting older, his hair's getting longer as well, that's how you can tell. But I think for Elvis, his experience in the real world probably helps him a little bit, right? Coming from quarter midgets, driving at a very young age, right? So understanding what it's like with, you know, the rear end moving around on you on the dirt surfaces. And it's definitely clear, right, after being at the Apex Racing team last year, there's now a quiet confidence that Elvis has slowly started to build, right? He seems to be quite assured in himself and his ability once again, which has always been there. It's whether he believes it, right? And so the win last week, the smile that we saw, a wry smile today when he won the sprint race, because he knows, Paul, the job's not done. There's still 20 laps of racing to go.
Now, one point I did want to make that touches on that 20-lap main race here. We had a 10-lap race there. We saw 2 drivers get black flags in that race, Dane Warren and Florian Lebigra. Double the length of time here for this second race, or distance, should I say, double the length of distance here. How big is incident point accumulation going to be in this second race and keeping your nose clean?
I'm trying to phrase my words carefully here. It all depends on how smart you want to be as a driver. Because if you want to knock 10 bells out of each other into turn 1 every single lap for the opening 10 laps, then don't be surprised if you get a drive-through penalty by the time you get to the halfway mark. However, if you're being a bit more conscious, right, look at Matti Sieppel, a great example of someone who started down the back, would have been in the thick of the action, right, at turn 2, where we saw the track blocker effectively, but he didn't get a penalty. So you've got to make the right decision at the right time. No drop weeks. You can't afford a bad round if you're not going to win every single race this season. Think about it like a championship. Think about it like, well, you're not a racing driver, like you're studying for a PhD. I don't know. Racing drivers aren't known for their wisdom under pressure, are they?
I wasn't the one who said that. That was the words of Arjuna Kankapati there. Folks, we've got about 10 seconds remaining in this warm-up session between the 2 races. We've got a 20-lap race, main race, coming up for you, everybody. So stick around, get your beverage of choice, because you've got about 2 minutes before the start of the action here for the main race in this, the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. It's week number 2 of the championship. Only 6-week championship, so the pressure is on all of these drivers to get a good result. And speaking of getting good results, let's take you through your starting grid here. The top 8, it's inverted from their finishing position. So Will Chadwick, who finished 8th, he'll be starting on pole position with Bryn Collins alongside him in that Contender Esports car. Look out for Bryn, he'll be quite exciting in the early stages there. Tristan Iglesias and Jakub Baciewski then on row number 2 ahead of Julian Sonnen and Elliot Veyron. Row number 4 for Mitchell de Jong and Elvis Rankin, with Oscar Pai and Nicholas Matteo then. All these drivers now starting where they finished. Michael Gianni's Andy Reid on row number 6. 7th row of the grid for Carlos Fenalosa and Dylan Savani, with Roger Christensen, Andrew Caron, with Rafael Silva and Matti Sieppel, and ahead of Florian Lebigra and Chunya Zam. Then it's Daniel Pastor and Marina Sarica, Pascal Costa and Quentin Violate on run number 12. The 13th rower was Belike and Dane Warren. So Warren did actually finish in 26th in the end with his black flag. Let's hear back. Josh Rogers, Simone Maria Marcheno, Beckham Jasia, and then finally Leo Gariboli. They have got a lot of work to do here. Question for you, our junior, is we saw how Elvis Rankin was able to hold on from the lead. That clear windscreen in front of you helps you a lot starting from pole.
Absolutely, and you know the spray was quite intense right through portions of that race. Going to be curious to see if it is going to change. The radar showing that it's probably not, and so I think the opening couple of laps, you're going to see a lot of jockeying for track position, Paul, and then after that, if you do again have a bit of a breakaway lead and, you know, 3 cars separated out, don't expect much towards the battle up front. Battles behind, surely going to be intense.
Paul Smith and Arjuna Kankipati here on commentary for this, the main race of week number 2 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. The engine revs rise, and it's a quick change of the lights. It's a green flag in the air, and Will Chadwick gets a great launch from pole position then into the first corner. It's side by side, Collins and Iglesias, as the rest of the field working their way through. Can we get through cleanly on lap 1? We'll have to wait and see. Remember, cold tyres and brakes, that's going to be a big factor here on these opening couple of laps with this wet weather. We've not had a track blockage through Williams, so that's a positive over lap number 1 of the sprint race. Into the upward curve then, and still we're going too wide through the field here. Further down, Daniel Savani's got a black flag, so he must have had a jump start or something right at the start there, Arjuna, as they're going 2-3 wide down the back straight.
And so this is where, right, we expected potentially drivers looking to try and be a bit more aggressive. Look to the inside. Well, 4 wide. Andrew Carone has gone caroning off into the grass. Daniel Savini's come in as well like a wrecking ball in the 8. And so helter-skelter down at the hairpin. Plenty of drivers get out safely, though, Paul, through all of that. It's Carone and Savini, the big losers.
Savini came in. You called it. Like a wrecking ball then, and I think that was a case of as soon as he touched the grass here, the wet grass, it's like ice, there's nothing you can do. Elvis Rankin's losing the position here. He's side by side with Nicholas Matteo, doing a good job around the outside then of Hobbs Corner in towards the Mike Knight corner. Through the right-hander, low curb, and Matteo gets ahead of your sprint race winner. And out of last corner onto the power once again down the start-finish straight. So it's Will Chadwick ahead of Bryn Collins. We've got a spinner further back down the order. I believe that was Costa potentially. There's a Coanda car gone absolutely spearing off. It's the number 77, Xander Reed. And well, there's a slow-moving car, number 26, number 28 as well, the 78 involved in all of that. Absolute carnage. Rafael Silva was the 78 coming back on. We thought it'd be chaos on lap 1. It was going into the first corner on lap 2 then, Arjuna.
It's been something, hasn't it? Maybe a little less dramatic in the opening 2 corners. No lack of drama because Labigra, Marcheno, the 2 of them have come together. You saw Lassa back there get a bit of a hip check with the red line machine as they work down this back straightaway. And the spray shows as well the separation that started to build through all of these little battle packs that we have, Paul. So I think one thing that we know for sure is there's always no lack of post-race debriefs in the virtual paddock between drivers and antagonism. I think that's maybe the nicest way to say it. Ratchet that up a little bit more after this one. I think there's going to be a few angry DMs sent from some drivers to others as Kawanda 91 and 93 trying to avoid making contact. Guess who's joined the fun? Nicholas Matteo once again says, let me try and get past the purple and orange.
Well, Elvis Rankin wants his place back from Matteo. And Michael Jarni, you can see just on screen there momentarily just how little view you've got them from on board, and it's not particularly fast section of the track there as well. So when you come down this straight, it just builds and builds, does that spray as they come down the start and finish straight onto the brakes. And Matteo down the inside gets the move done on Julian Sonin. Nicely done there into first corner. then for Matteo, and Nicholas Matteo is a driver on a charge here.
He's really performing well in these conditions, one to watch, and flying the flag for Drago Racing right now. That, though, great illustration of the lack of visibility in these conditions, riding from the roof of Michael Jani, right now sitting in, you know, not the worst of positions in what was 10th at the time, but really just get a sense for how careful you've got to be. And go back to the incident for Xander Reed just for a moment, Paul. Think about, right, the mentality that some of these drivers might have come in with. The idea that you need to be aggressive in the rain to get results. I don't think that's necessarily what we're seeing drive people to the front, though, and instead, it's the lack of aggression, the willingness to just roll with the punches, to let the speed come to you. That's really seen some drivers perform, and it's great to see Will Chadwick up the top as much as, you know, I'm sure there's going to be some people saying, Will Chadwick on top? Which year are we in?
I'm seeing another car go down the order, car 57. Well, that's Dame Warren. He is in the gravel trap, in the kitty litter. He will get out of that. But yeah, not been a good day at the office for Dame Warren then. Do you know what? These conditions remind me of going way back in my memory banks to 1992, as he will look at Andrew Caron from the first lap of the race, and that is what happened to Caron at the start of this one. You saw Savini as well came in like Miley Cyrus, but I rack back to 1992, former Porsche Super Cup guest driver and British Touring Car champion John Cleland. He was mic'd up for a race whilst he was driving at Knock Hill, and it was similar conditions. That's what happened to Xander Reed on lap 2. He was mic'd up, similar conditions to this, and he came out with a famous phrase, which was, "Where the hell's the track? I cannot see a thing."
I was just waiting for this replay because I was going to say, talking of Miley Cyrus, Xander Reed, I don't think he could do too much about this particular incident. I know that the sprint race didn't go all his own way, but yeah, the feature race not ideal. We know what happens when you mic up commentators. Again, Rain, Nordschleifer, another round of All-Stars, Porsche. I'm just saying! Oh, Elvis Rankin now turned by Julian Sohn, and the wheels coming loose for Cowan. More contact between the purple and orange.
Oh my goodness, Elvis. How he's keeping his calm there. It's the only way that you can do that is keep your calm and just try and recover from that. But again, it's big errors, and this is all it takes though in this weather. The slightest of contact, there's so little grip. As here we see Rafael Silva's point of view of that incident with Xander Reed, and he avoided one Coanda car but ended up rear-ending the other.
Yeah, I mean, pick your poison, if you will. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, it's not like he was picking with any intent other than let me try and avoid the incident for as long as possible. These are the type of mistakes, Paul, that we don't traditionally see, though, right? It's good to see that they're being challenged. You were talking about the pressure being piled onto them. Some of them breaking, unfortunately. But that's what this level of competition is meant to be about. Finding out who is the very best, dealing with all of that pressure. And so, you know, a bit wide there for Elliot Veyron. That doesn't really slow him down. It just lets him get off the corner a little bit more. Did open up the door for someone, one behind to try and make something happen. Mitchell de Jong slips past Jakub Maciejewski.
Yeah, gain a position then for de Jong in that one. That's 2 places gained now for Mitchell. And if ever a driver has to be on his wits about a loose car, then, well, his rallycross experience should come into play a little bit with this one. Carlos Fenalosa, by the way, is moving up through the field. Here's what happened to Matti Sippola. Well, we can't see a lot what happened really, other than there was contact between him and a Grid and Go car. I think that was Simone Minimarceno, and the two of them. I mean, and the innocent party and all of that was the impulse car coming through behind. Where do you go, you know, when you've got a car that's wanted to be on the same piece of asphalt as you are?
It's not much you can do, but again, it comes down to putting yourself in the right place at the right time. Think about Matti Stiepel in the first race. It all went well for him, not so well this time around. Dane Warren coming to blows there with one of the Williams Esports drivers. I think that was Beckham Jasir. So physical on his debut in this 2024 Contender Series. I think one thing just to keep an eye on, though, is the fact that one driver has been slowly picking his way through all the chaos in this main race, the feature race. We were only 5 laps complete, Paul. And guess what? Josh Rogers picked up 11 places so far.
Oh, that's actually down 1 place from what I was looking at on my timing screen earlier, so he's actually lost a place here. But you've got to be sensible. You've got to be sensible in these conditions. But what you'll also see is the drivers who have got the smoothest touch and feel. It's just those drivers that will benefit greatly in these conditions compared to those who like to be pointy and aggressive with the car. You have to be smooth with your brake applications, with your throttle applications, as well as your steering. You can't be aggressive with them, or else you will end up in the barriers.
These cars, they're so difficult in these conditions, right? And that's why I always say, go on YouTube, search Porsche Cup Car Nordschleife wet, and you'll see Sean Edwards absolutely mastering this car. Back when you had to take one hand off the wheel to shift as well, when it had the stick, you know, pointing up from the floor. I'm sure there are kids born nowadays that don't even remember race cars like that. But it's just the test of a driver, Paul, and it's why you mentioned that the cars do come with ABS and traction control. Certain Carrera Cups around the world run with those driver aids. In the Super Cup, where you're expected to be fighting to be the best that Porsche has, no, you don't get those aids. You've got to figure it out by yourself, as Nicholas Matteo figures out his move on Jakub Maciejewski, slows it down in time.
Wow, that is a great move. And while that was going on, De Jong and Iglesias were switching places as well in front of him. So I think he was having to get on the anchors a little bit more because of those two slowing each other up in first corner. They come through the Moss S once again, and now Iglesias is going to be under some serious pressure here from Nicholas Matteo, who is absolutely thriving in these conditions. He's loving life out there in the wet stuff. It's wetter than an otter's pocket out there right now, but he is loving life.
You have to keep an eye on Matteo for the rest of the season as well, because clearly he's got this sort of figured out. There's not much you can do in terms of the setup of the car. You know, you tweak your cambers a little bit, you know, dial in a bit of suspension, but for the most part, it's just down to the driver themselves to get the most from the machine, as Matteo pushes a little bit too wide, bounces over the grass, but only loses half a car length or so. So there's nothing that Drago Racing will have found really you would expect in terms of setup. No, it is just wheeling the absolute doors off that machine, and just look at the lines that he's running. He's putting the pressure on Iglesias in ways I don't think Tristan's been put under pressure so far today. And so watch this out of that final corner. He's going to just try and open up the door here, put himself in the mirrors, get a better run on to the main straightaway, and then into turn one. Can he repeat it? It was a bold move a lap ago. Rear end comes out for Iglesias. Here comes Matteo on the power.
You could hear him changing down to second gear just to help use that engine braking to slow the car down and to set it up for corner exit, then quickly back up to third on corner exit. Matteo's just not quite close enough to make the move that time, but he's a driver on a charge through this field, so we'll be keeping an eye on him at this point. 5 drivers who have retired: Daniel Savani, Simone Marciano, Pascal Costa, Xander Reed, and Matti Sipola. Dane Warren's down in 26th. He's not gained any places at all after his issues earlier on in this race. Michael Gianni has been moving up. Here comes Matteo in the slipstream, in the spray, into the hairpin. Look at him, he's braking that a little bit earlier, coming into the corner, keeping the nose in there. Iglesias, though, holds it around the outside, and that corner is cambered to help you out. The problem is these two corners, in whatever car you ever drive around this track, you understeer through these corners.
Right, and you bring up the camber, the banking through the hairpin, right? That actually means there's a bit more of a puddle on the inside than if you're running the wider arc around the corner, which means that if you're on the outside line, you're on the the less preferred line on braking, but then through the corner, you might actually be in a slightly better position. There are fights through the field, though, and so look behind Rogers, where the battle brews between Daniel Pastor, Lewis Bailica as well, and I think I'm going to be a little bit curious to see what some of these drivers down the pack do, Paul, remembering the two drivers, Florian Lebigra chief amongst them, that got incident penalties and had to come down to serve a drive-through penalty. We are nearing the halfway point of the race, seen plenty of car contact, plenty of cars running wide. How many are close to the limit? As Matteo to the limit to 5th position.
And look how he gets that car stopped on the apex, stops any chance of Iglesias trying to make the dive under there. Oh, a bit of a slide of the rear end of Matteo's car through Williams. It's exciting to watch, and Nicholas now has got sights set ahead of him to Mitchell de Jong. He's run wide at Atwood Curve, and all of that hard work, he loses 2 places. He's got to do it all again.
And what was I saying about Xander Reed and the mindset in the first race maybe being a bit too over-aggressive? Matteo's shown us the speed, shown us the cost, though, when he goes over the limit. Now he's got it all to do again. Can he do it after putting a bit too much pressure into his own mind, Paul? I mean, let's be honest, self-inflicted mistakes, those are sometimes the hardest to bounce back from.
Yeah, when you start beating yourself up when you're the one who's made the mistake. If you have contact from somebody else, you can kind of deal with that, but to a degree at least. But when you are the one who makes that mistake, you start beating yourself up potentially. Here is the battling further down, Lebigra around the outside of Sarika, and Lebigra now trying to fight with Oscar Pye and taking those different lines to Oscar. But Marina Sarika, a driver who's well experienced in the Super Cup. Oh, to the inside of final corner. What goes Lebigra? That was a bold move, but do you know what? That might have just worked out for him nicely.
Slowed it down in time. Can he be followed through? Answer might be yes, and I don't think there's going to be a 2-for-1. Sarika has to get back into line and onto the brakes as Oscar Pye drops down to 14th position. Nicholas Matteo slid his way forward as well, up past Jakub Maciejewski once again. So he's knocking on the door of Tristan Iglesias once more. And Paul, we're going to reach the halfway mark this time at the line. Will Chadwick leads by 3 seconds as around goes Beckham Jasir. I was just about to say that Will Chadwick's looking good. Beckham Jasir, not so good.
Yeah. Jasir around drops down to 26th and out of the championship points for this race. Remember, as a reminder, top 25 in this second race gets points. The winner gets double the points that the race winner from the sprint race gets. Here's a look then at the replay. Jasir down the inside. Oh, and he just slides into Quentin Violate there. And before you know it, you're facing the wrong way in the kitty litter.
And that's the risk, right? So Nicholas Matteo's done a good job of, when he's made those darting, diving moves under the brakes, of clearing the other car and then slowing himself down enough that basically the car runs into the bumper. Whereas for the Williams Esports machine there, he just wasn't clear and he was still trying to slide the car out of line. Unfortunately, car on the outside has to turn it eventually, turns in into the left rear wheel, and around into the gravel goes Beckham Jasir. Going back to what I was saying about Will Chadwick, though, Bryn Collins has not been closing. That margin's held quite steady, Paul. So 10 laps left to go. What I meant to say earlier when we saw Dane Warren go off was Will Chadwick's very, very quick. We all know this. But usually, he's someone we know is a favorable, partial to a GT4 machine. He likes the feeling of that car. But now we're seeing him really start to show his speed in this car as Elvis Rankins comes into trouble.
Yeah, Elvis Rankin then. Big dramas. It's gone from bad to worse for Elvis throughout this race. After winning that sprint race, starting 8th, and he's just been dropping back through the field now. That's 8 positions lost throughout this race for Elvis as Josh Rogers made it past him. Julian Sonin's had an issue there, and he's been off into the kitty litter at Atwood Curve. We saw how last time out at Portimao in the Algarve, how the Coanda team seemed to be impervious to mistakes. Well, not so here. That's Matteo. Mateo's off at the hairpin corner. He's dropping down the order. What on earth has happened there? Because I think Carlos Fenalosa was slow at that location as well. Here we go. Here's one replay.
I wonder if we're seeing a bit of change in the conditions. Are we seeing a bit more heavy rain, less intense? And that's just the mistakes. Was Rankin just straight aquaplanes in many ways, directly into the wall. Nothing he could really do. Julian Sutton, similar situation. Once you're too deep, you're committed. And you're not recovering, you're not winding the car back after that. And Nicholas Matteo, killed by a teammate. I'm not sure that one's going to go down very well.
We've been saying about how the Contender debrief is going to be. How's it going to be for Drago Racing as well? And that's just Fenalosa made a heck of a dive down the inside of Maciejewski. Way too late on the brakes. No stopping that car, and unfortunately, it's Matteo, who has been really impressive this race, is the innocent victim in all of that.
Oh, yeah, you just see how quickly the car goes around as well. He wouldn't have had a chance to react to that one either, right, Paul? I mean, like, sometimes you'd say, oh, you'll see it in the mirror. No, he won't see it. There's spray. The time to actually see the car once you've turned in and the mirror gets a sight of the car oncoming. No chance. And so for Matteo, he's going to just try and salvage a top 10. Through all of that, though, you know, as much as we're saying Coanda have had their struggles, they've still got Bryn Collins, Mitchell de Jong, Elliot Veyron, Tristan Iglesias, 2nd through 5th. So when you have 12 cars, even if a few have struggles, you still end up with a few inside the top 5.
Listen to the engine though. You can just hear him desperately trying to change down gears, trying everything that he can to slow that car down. As soon as he pulls out from the spray and just sees his teammate, and there's nothing that he can do there. And Matteo then down to 12th place. Oh, Carlos Fenalosa is 8th still at the moment. Now it's Josh Rogers who's behind Matteo. Rogers is up 15 places in this race now, so he's been working his way through the field. Matteo, he's got Oscar Pye in front. He'll be wanting to move in front of Oscar. But how much damage is there to his car? He's not got the black and orange mechanical meatball warning flag, so he's fine to carry on, but surely an impact like that, Arjuna, is going to cause some damage.
I think it's all just going to depend on how squarely you end up hitting the other car as well, because things can be so fine in terms of the margins. I mean, very off topic, but I was watching some rallying this weekend when certain very skilled driver hit something he wasn't meant to, and he was literally saying if he was 1 inch forward, the car would have been drivable, but because it was 1 inch backwards, it sheared a bolt and blah, 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 and so he found himself in a world of hurt. So these sort of races, Paul, you know you're not going to have a perfect car by the end of it. You're just trying to make it work. You're just trying to figure out where the speed comes. You're hoping not to get onto the grass like Rogers did there. Doesn't look like he was too concerned about it, though.
Well, he wasn't too concerned about it. I was, though. My goodness. Well, let's take stock of how things are at the moment. It is Will Chadwick who leads ahead of Bryn Collins, with Mitchell de Jong in 3rd place. He's been working his way forward as Mitchell. Watch out for him. Then it's Elliot Veyron ahead of Tristan Iglesias. Jakub Maciejewski in 6th ahead of Michael Jani. Carlos Fenalosa, Florian Lebigre, who has been on a bit of a recovery drive now, up into 9th place. Morena Matsarika rounding out the top 10 of your field. It's 25 drivers who score points in a race like this. There is currently 26 cars running out there, although Matti Sipilä is multiple laps down.
Trying to just get whatever he can from this, though, right? Every point is important, so if he can grab some points, that's all he's really hoping to do. And, you know, again, I'm not sure how much these drivers have gone through the rest of the schedule, looked at the forecast potentially, Paul, and tried to figure out where the rain is. Is this going to be a one-off? Is it something they need to be a bit more, you know, planning for in the future? Because the double-digit gainers in this race, a few more than what we had in the sprint race. The level of chaos has been a little bit higher as well. And so, do you need to prepare differently? Do you need to sit back and go, all right, maybe I didn't figure out what I needed to in this rain. How do I now practice a little bit better, a bit more efficiently, so the next time we go racing in these conditions, I'm ready to deal with a challenge?
But if we do end up with conditions, are they going to be this wet, or is it just going to be a damp track where we get changeable conditions where potentially you could be switching to slick tyres? There goes Josh Rogers on Oscar Pie. It's up to 12th place now. That's 16 places gained for Josh Rogers out there. Marina Sarika's gained 12 places in this race, and Florian Labigra 10 in this one. So some big movers through this field, as Quentin Violate's had a little bit of a slow run through the hairpin. I've got a flash of a yellow flag on my track map. But Will Chadwick right now, 3.5 seconds in the lead. I said, how important is it to have a clear windscreen in front of you? It's showing to be worth its while.
Yes, but a counter-argument to that. Bryn Collins has got a clean windshield in front of him, struggling to close at this point. But I know what you're saying. I definitely know what you're saying.
Beckham Josiah and Leo Gariboli are the first of your drivers to get a black flag for incident points accumulated. So those two are going to have to serve a drive-through penalty. Oh, it's been a hard day at the office for both Gariboli and Josiah, and now they're going to be losing even more time out there. And it's not just the time that you're losing there, it's the fact that you jump off of the back of the field that you're trying to gain positions through.
So 5 laps to go at the line for your leader. If you are one of these drivers running a bit wide, are you concerned about that? At the end of the day, I think everyone inside of the top 4 can afford, given the margins they've got, to now be a little less pushy. It's all these drivers that have made mistakes, right? Elvis Rankin right in the thick of it, where they've got plenty of spray, Paul. They're not really going to have the chance to calm down and to wind down. These final 5 laps is very much going to be just holding on. And maybe I'm crazy, maybe I am, but I think it's looking a little bit more intense out there. My weather radar is also saying it's a little bit more of an intense yellow. Could I be crazy? I could.
To be honest, I don't think you could get much wetter out there on track. I really don't. I think this is about as wet as you could possibly get in iRacing here. Beckham Josiah, by the way, has parked the car. He got a black flag and has decided, you know what, that's my day done. How important then is it for someone like Matti Sipilä, who we said was just going to try and gain places? I don't think he would complete enough laps though to be able to gain a position on him. But how important is it for people who have had incidents early on to just carry on in the races like this in particular, because you might end up gaining something in the end.
Absolutely, as we've been saying. I think there's also something to be said about that perseverance in the first race, right? Let's say you got tangled up in one of the incidents down at turn 2. Because grid position for the feature race is determined by finishing position for the sprint, it's still probably worth it to go out there and try and grab a couple more spots if there's a couple more crashes. And so, you know, these are all the things that at this level of competition, go back out there, finish every single lap. Even if you don't get a result, Paul, I think the one thing that we saw with Marceno, for example, in qualifying, there's value to be had from being out on track and seeing what you can do relative to the rest of the competition.
Actually, I've just been doing some quick back of an envelope maths. Matti Sipilä, if he completes 3 more laps, will actually move ahead of Beckham Josiah, and that would move Josiah out of the points. So that's why, even though he'd got a drive-through penalty and it's moved him down to 25th, that's still a point. That's where I just think that there's something in staying out there and keeping going in a race like this, because every point matters in the Contender Series, especially when you've missed a round of the Contender Series. We've got Julian Sonin trying to follow his teammate of Elvis Rankin through on Roger Christensen. And look to the outside. That is actually the preferred line because he can get on the power nice and early there on corner exit. Christensen holds on for the time being. We've actually only got 24 cars going around track right now. Drivers have been dropping like flies.
I'm quite surprised in some cases that we haven't had more attrition. Think to, Carlos Venalosa had that big contact with his teammate Nicolas Matteo. He's still up there in 8th and battling with Michael Johnny. There's definitely been a few more drivers that maybe could have found themselves out of contention, but have tried to keep themselves in the thick of things, and lucky not to be spun around and pointed in the wrong direction on some occasions. For Ron Christensen, though, looks in front, sees Coanda, looks behind, sees Coanda as well. I think he'll be a bit more concerned with Julian Sonnen, though, who's looked a bit feisty and shaped up for a move on the last handful of laps. Shows himself once more, unsettles Christensen on the run onto the back straightaway.
I do notice, by the way, in the Porsche Twitch chat that Borja Zaza, one of our all-stars, is in there, and he's saying he can't understand how these drivers manage to go so fast in these conditions with this car. I mean, there's something to be said about the skill level that is out there on track here. You know, it's so easy to make a mistake. As Collins and Veyron are looking, switching positions and rubbing door handles between the two of them. Collins loses the position to Veyron. That's allowed Chadwick to move even further ahead, and Mitchell de Jong now is possibly looking at a podium place.
It's clear that I think Bryn is struggling the deeper into this race that we go, and so eventually might get a bit of a team switch around there, although I'm not sure what it looks like in terms of the point situation. Expect the Coanda teammates to do whatever they need to just maximize the result for the team. Carlos Fenalosa finally in front of Michael Gianni. As we take a look at the points on the right-hand side, look how close it is through some of these positions. First through fourth, arguably a little bit of a gap opening up there. Rankin and Iglesias tied for second. But then Paul, that fight for 4th through 15th, expecting that to be really close on our way to the end of the season.
Yeah, this is going to be, you will not want to miss a single week of this championship. As on to the grass there goes Fenalosa. Big, scary moments in these conditions to go on the grass. Again, Lebigra, he's up 11 places through all of this. He's having a good second race after getting caught up in incidents in the first race. He was actually facing the wrong way in this race as well, wasn't he, Arjuna? So he's had to do it tough as Florian, and he's doing a good job up there in eighth place.
The responsibility of switching from an Indy car to a Porsche Cup car and going from dry to wet conditions at two very different tracks. I can't imagine the type of stress that Florian's probably been going through the last couple of days as he's tried to get himself ready to go as the sole red line driver in the series as well, which means, you know, he might have some teammates helping him out, Paul, but, you know, compared to the Coanda drivers who have got 11 other benchmarks to work against, he's really trying to figure out how to go faster. I mean, look at Fenalosa struggling, though. Lebigra looking very, very quick.
Latest two victims of the instant limit, Daniel Pashto and Rafael Silva. So they're going to have to come onto pit road and serve a drive-through penalty. So one or two of your drivers further down having the opportunity of gaining one or two positions with those two going to the pit road. We've got 2 laps remaining in this race here, and it's still all on. And, well, I think we're seeing how the both of them got a black flag. Bang! Contact. Daniel Pashto violently spun around at the hairpin corner, and the two of them heading down to pit road. Well, Pashto decides to serve that drive-through straight away. Silva is going on for another lap.
So keep watching Florian Lebigra trying to work his magic on the back of Carlos Fenalosa. Down to the hairpin for the penultimate time. Been an interesting race, to say the very least, for Florian Lebigra. 11 positions gained. I think the one thing he'll definitely be able to tell himself, Paul, he's basically maximized the result after being in the position he was put in, right? Yes, you know, race one, the sprint race didn't go all to plan, but he's bounced back for his way forward, and he would be the biggest mover today, except for the fact there's a couple of other drivers that have had to come from deep in the pack as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's those drivers that have had to do the recovery drive. That's what's counted against him being the biggest mover through all of this. Been some really tremendous racing, even though we have been seeing cars going off left, right and centre. Pretty much every corner has claimed a victim here, but we have seen some incredible moves throughout this race here. I will say that one driver in particular that we're on board with, Nicholas Mateo. I'll tell you what, our producer, Hugo Luis, must be a mind reader, because I was just about to mention Nicholas Mateo as the driver has been pulling off some incredible moves, and we go on board with him in his fight for 10th place with Marina Sarica onto the last lap.
I mean, he's had to fight his way back. Second time, not really any fault to be placed on his own. Contact with a teammate that I'm sure they'll have a bit of a discussion about. This, though, is the only thing he can look at, right? Trying to get himself to the top 10. Also has got to watch for Josh Rogers from behind, though. So this is going to be really interesting, right? How do you set this run up to the back straightaway? You want to try and maximize your run off the corner to try and move forward, but he's looking a bit more behind, because look at Rogers, really comfortable, it would seem, from the body language of the car. Mateo's all over the shop in comparison, a little bit more wobbly, a little bit more shaky, gets off onto the power very nicely, though. Let's see what happens for one final time to the hairpin.
I don't think Josh makes a move here. He's just trying to see where he is on the track to get his braking right into the hairpin. Oh my goodness, he nearly ends up crashing into the back of Mateo. Well, I said he wasn't going to go for the move. I don't think he went for the move. I think it was just a case of missing his braking point. Offline. Well, one driver who isn't offline is Will Chadwick. He's just got 2 more corners to go here through Mike Knight corner. And the young man from Wigan, well, I said he might be having a Wigan kebab if he does well. I think he'll have 2 tonight. My goodness, Will Chadwick then comes across the line, a race winner in the Contender Series in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. Rest of the drivers coming across the line, Elliot Veyron and Mitchell de Jong does get onto the podium spots. Bryn Collins dropped down to 5th in the end, Jakub Maciejewski in 6th. As the rest of the field coming through. It was a race of attrition here, but you had to be in it to win it, and Will Chadwick made the most of his inverted grid position.
And now 50 very valuable points onto the board, given how that some struggled here today and really, you know, ineffective in their quest to try and put points into their contention to make it to the Super Cup. He's going to be delighted, not just with the performance, Paul, but what this means for his chances of finally making it to the big show.
Yeah, he finished 2nd in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain in 2023. He had a tougher time this season because a lot of drivers from the main Esports Super Cup turned up to compete in that championship. Here's a look then at the results for you. Will Chadwick then, winner by 3.2 seconds. Comfortable winner over Elliot Veyron, ahead of Mitchell de Jong, Tristan Iglesias and Bryn Collins. Jakub Maciejewski, been a solid week for him. 6th place in the end for the driver from Poland. Carlos Penalosa, and in 7th ahead of Florian Lebigra, who had a fighting charge through the field into 8th place. Michael Gianni and Marina Sarica rounds out your top 10. Nicholas Mateo then 11th ahead of Josh Rogers with Oscar Pye, Elvis Rankin, Roger Christensen, Julian Sonnen, Luis Belique, Andrew Caron, Quentin Violette and Dame Warren 20th, with Daniel Pastor, Rafael Silva and Chun Zhan in 23rd and last of the drivers on the lead lap. And then those that did not finish or were multiple laps down: Leo Gariboli, Matti Sipola did finish the race, but 4 laps down, the rest did not. Beckham Jasia, Lasse Bach, Xander Reed, Simone Maria Marchena, Pascal Costa, and then Daniel Savini on lap number 1 with that big incident on lap 1 at the hairpin, meaning that he does not finish this race. Well, what a great second race that was. Plenty of thrills and spills. But I must say, congratulations, Will Chadwick, in some of the worst conditions I've seen so far on iRacing.
And again, I hope we get to see this a bit more in the 2025 Porsche Esports Super Cup. The question, I guess, that the drivers will be thinking about, and viewers alike, how many of our races have rain? To which the answer is yes. Porsche, if you're listening, if you're asking me, yes, all the races.
Well, I mean, let's have a bit of variety, I will say. Maybe that level of rain was a bit much, but it really tested those drivers' ability out there, and it showed who was the most, and I'll say it again, adaptable driver for those conditions.
And so let's talk to the most adaptable in that feature race. Will Chadwick comes out on top 20 laps later. Will, first off, congratulations. I know you must be thrilled with that performance. How did you feel about the drive?
Dream come true. I don't know what it is. It seems that whenever I start on the front row in this series, I get an amazing start. And in this sort of condition, I can't lie, it's a massive advantage to be able to actually see. So I just kept my head, and yeah, I mean, every lap I was so concerned. It's so easy to lock a brake and just go straight. It's one of the hardest conditions that you can face in iRacing, and you know, like the track is it already continues to state that it's extremely wet, and it's just such a hard condition to drive in. I was quite on the edge for the 20 laps. It felt very long.
Now, how do you think about the 4 rounds that we've got left after this? Puts you in a relatively comfortable position, I'd guess, right? With 2 good performances, 2 decent points hauls so far today. What do you think about the schedule and some of the new tracks that we've got coming up in this Contender series?
I drove Sachsenring not too long ago just for some photos, and I think it's a really cool track, traditionally a bike track, like you say, but yeah, it's an interesting track to go to. We go to Laguna like we did last year. It wasn't quite the round for me last year, but I like the track, and I'm really looking forward to the coming schedule, and this is a massive pressure off my shoulders after the first round I had at Portimao.
Well, hoping that the next round goes just as well as this one will, and we're talking to you in 7 days' time. Congrats on the win here from a very rainy Okayama. Let's see how things go for you next time out.
Thank you very much, Arjuna. Always
great to chat to the Hummer Setups driver, Will Chadwick. We'll now make our way, though, over to the sprint race winner and Elvis Rankin, who back-to-back wins. You can tell he's feeling the groove and the love in the Contender Esports camp. Elvis, talk to us about sprint race victory and really staying out of trouble in these very damp conditions.
Yeah, it was really tricky. I had a really nice quali lap. I was really happy with it. I struggled a little bit throughout the week for practice-wise, but when the moment came, I feel like I put together a really nice lap, so I'm really happy about that. And then it was just really smooth, set sail, just nice and smooth. I had Mitchell and Elliott behind and just get a consistent result, and then tried to get a nice result in the feature, but a lot of carnage happened that, yeah, so. But it was good. I'm very happy about the quali and the sprint, so yeah, I couldn't be more happy about that.
And one thing I was kind of speculating on, your experience in quarter midgets and on the dirt, does that kind of help you here on iRacing in these wet conditions? Do you have a bit more of a feel and a sense for what's happening when, you know, the car's breaking out underneath you?
For sure, a little bit. Definitely not as much as Mitchell, but yeah, it helps a little bit. I'd say it's more, the more like real life experience that you have in the rain, that's more beneficial than really that kind of stuff, I would say.
All right, so we'll get you out into the rain in a real car a bit more. Got it, that's what you're asking for. Elvis Rankin, winner in the sprint race, and we'll see you next time to roll on in the Contender series.
Thank you.
So we'll now chat to another driver that's got his fair share of experience in the dirt in the real world, but Mitchell de Jong, double podium for him here today from the wet races at Okayama. Mitchell, great to see you back in the Contender series firstly. How are you feeling back at home in the Porsche Cup car and trying to make your way back up to the Porsche Esports Super Cup?
Yeah, super cool to be back. It's been a minute since I've been in a commentary box here with you guys on iRacing. So yeah, it's been really fun. I've been really enjoying my time back in the sim. And obviously we had quite an exciting race here in the rain. So this was a new challenge. So yeah, what a wild event. It's quite an exciting one for sure.
I'll ask you the same question that I asked to Elvis. Of course, you have your own experience in the dirt, most recently, back in a rallycross car. Does that translate into these rainy conditions on iRacing? Does that kind of help you understand when that car is breaking out underneath you, or do you find that it's just seat time in the rain that's ultimately beneficial?
Yeah, actually, I completely agree with you there. I think it is definitely a skill. Even back in my Rallycross World Championship days on iRacing, it was very much the same, where you're looking for these slightly grippier lines around the track as it wears in, and it's more or less the same here. You know, as you guys probably noticed, the wetness is constantly changing the clouds, and we had our spotters telling us what's going on, and in those moments, you just have to kind of like experiment a little bit, not take too much risk because you don't want to just suddenly fly off the track. But yeah, you got to play with it. There's a lot of time to gain if you pick the right line, so yeah, you need to test it out.
congratulations on the double podium, Mitchell. We'll see you next week to continue on with this Contender series, but another Coanda Esports driver getting double podiums today. Elliot Veyron joins us for a quick chat. Elliot, first off, congratulations. Let's start with qualifying, because Coanda's seemingly most of the teammates waiting quite late to go and set their lap. Was that something that you guys saw in the weather forecast? Did you think there was going to be a break in the rain and it was going to be beneficial to go out late?
Yeah, first of all, hi guys. Yeah, we had our spotters and even the drivers were watching basically the forecast, and yeah, we saw a little like span of time where we could go on the track, and it was a little bit less wet than at the beginning of the qualifying, basically. Yeah, I think that helped us a lot get a good result.
And how did the car feel when you're looking, we saw a couple of drivers get incident penalties and, have to come serve drive-throughs. Lots of close battling. How does the car behave when you're battling wheel to wheel? How careful do you have to be about the cars around you in some of the corners?
Yeah, it's very difficult to fight in the rain. You have only one right line, basically. So if you go a bit offline, you lock up quite easily, or you get a puddle or something. And yeah, it's really, really hard. So you have to be really cautious, even more with your teammate. But yeah, really cautious.
Elliot, congratulations on the results and the performances today. We'll see you next week for the next round of the Contender Series.
Yeah.
And so, Paul, great to chat to a handful of the Coanda Esports drivers, but I think the one thing that we know for sure is debrief's going to be kicking off right now as focus shifts to the next round of the championship.
Absolutely. We have a quick look at how the points are post-race before any stewards' decisions. This is, by the way, Mitchell de Jong leading the championship by 12 points over Elvis Rankin and Tristan Iglesias, with Gianni and Penalosa 1 point separating those two, with Florian Lebigra point back, and then Elliot Veyron a further point back. Josh Rogers down to 8th place ahead of Will Chadwick, who gets himself into the top 10 after that win in race number 2 of the evening. Julian Stone in 10th. And then this is the part where it gets a little bit more anxious and anxiety-inducing. Xander Reed, Bryn Collins, the 14th and 15th, but Rostra Christensen, Dane Warren, Oscar Pye, Matti Sipila, all there hunting to try and get into that top 15.
How quickly things can change, right? Dane Warren came in just inside of the top 10 and now on the outside looking in. We said 15 is the cutoff. One thing to keep in mind is there could very well be more than 15 drivers called up to the Super Cup. It's not a guarantee that there's going to be just 15 spots. However, one thing we know for sure, you want to be confident, you want to head into the winter and Christmas knowing you'll be fighting for the 2025 Porsche Esports Super Cup. Paul, get inside that top 15, give yourself a nice early Christmas gift.
Absolutely, and next week we head to the venue with one of the most iconic corners in the whole of world motorsport. It's the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, for week 3 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. Same time, same place. It's 9 p.m. CEST with 7 o'clock GMT if you want to work that out in your local area. Join myself and Arjuna for all the action from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca next week. But it was a week that was the big talking point was the weather. Well, it was Rankin and Chadwick who were able to take advantage of the conditions here. From everybody here, from myself, Paul Smith, Arjuna Kankapati, from Hugo Luis behind the scenes on the cameras. We'll see you next week at WeatherTech Raceway.